So you're looking at your goals, you look at what you did, and it's probably incredible. It's just not what you planned. And the problem isn't your brain, it is the goal setting framework. Traditional year end reviews assume that you knew what you needed in January. And that's just not realistic for solopreneurs or entrepreneurs in general. And then you end up executing against that plan. That's not how our brains operate. Okay. Neurodivergent brains are responsive. We pivot, we hyper focus on what's working, we abandon what isn't, we learn and adjust. And that's great because we are adjusting constantly. It doesn't have to necessarily mean it's chaotic, but it can be. Today, I really want to talk a little bit about how this impacts you as a neurodivergent entrepreneur. What's that saying? You don't know what you don't know?
Yeah, yeah, yes. Yo, yo, it's Alyece, say it right, no cap. ADHD CEO, yeah, we run this track. Systems that slap, brains built different. We make sales in our sleep, yeah, the hustle's efficient. This ain't fluff, nah, this is strategy raw for the ADHD. Minds breaking every law. Hit subscribe, don't miss a single show. We're running on dopamine, let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
If you don't know what you don't know, and you're beating yourself up thinking last year was a total loss, one, there are ways to improve it moving into next year. Okay. But two, most importantly, I want you to see what momentum you did build so that you can continue building that way. And so, one of the beliefs that I see, and I see this in my programs with business owners that I work with all the time, we know that our brains operate on dopamine and a deadline, period. I often will talk to entrepreneurs in my program, and they're like, well, I had set myself a date of going live on this day. And when it doesn't hit on that day, they honestly feel like it was just a total loss, feel like a failure. Except that assumes that you had perfect information in January, that you knew what your business would need, all the external circumstances wouldn't change. You've got to account for that. And that's just not how life works. This is one of the reasons I actually put out the growth game plan a while back. And I'll put the link in the show notes below as well, so you can check that out. But those sessions were all about me looking from the outside into your business, right? Because you set the intentions, you review them, you adjust them, you make goals that make sense to you in January, but might not make sense in June. But when you discover something better, you pivot. And that's not failure, that's learning. But it could also be you are bored with what you're doing. And we do know that if you don't stick with something long enough, it's not going to work, right? I mean, you can start a diet every single Monday, lose 2 pounds, give up on it by Thursday, and then repeat the cycle every single week if you want. And you're never going to see a result. And a lot of times it's because we get bored. So I'm using the whole weight loss example here, right? You get bored week one, you're eating the same exact thing every single day for 5 days in a row. Now, me, I'm the kind of person I could eat the same thing every single day, and it really doesn't bother me. But some people out there like variety. So by like Friday, you're bored, or you get a dopamine hit when you end up going to the in laws for, a Christmas party. And it's like, oh my God, they made my favorite lemon bars or whatever you're into these days. And so then you just throw it all to the window, all to the wind. That's just not how life works. We learn as we go. I want you to think about, look at one missed goal. Honestly, did you miss it because you were incapable or because it wasn't the right priority anymore? If I'm using this weight loss example, let me go ahead and go with it. For those of you that don't know, I have fluctuated weight like crazy my entire life. Food is dopamine for me, so it doesn't work well with my ADHD. But I have done before, I've lost a significant amount of weight years ago after having Caden. I lost about 75 pounds, diet alone, no crazy exercise or anything like that, just strictly in the kitchen. But I was very, very strict at what I ate. I was under eating, if I'm being honest. For me, it got to a point where it was like boredom, right? You get kind of bored. And so you start adding a tablespoon of this and a tablespoon of that. And I got obsessive with it. I focused and fixated on losing that weight. And then instead of learning and adjusting, I did what we do in our business and I burnt it all down and I gained a ton of it back. Then I felt like straight guilt, right? Here I am, guilty. Oh my gosh, now I can't even leave my house. People are going to see I put weight back on. Like it got to be this whole drastic measure. Then comes LJ, have LJ, do it again, lose it again, right? Think about your priorities and learning from your past failures. Because I know right now with my family schedule and the priorities I have in my life today, I could never do anything that crazy strict. I wouldn't want to do anything that crazy strict again. But finding that middle ground, using your failures as a learning experience. The second thing that I see, oh my gosh, I really did not set today up to use weight loss as examples, but it's just working out that way. Okay. The second thing I see is I should be further along. And so I've had a lot of conversations, especially on like one on one calls with entrepreneurs who are like, well, I watched this other girl and she started around the same time as me. She's just so much further along than me. And you were just comparing yourself like really bad to these other people. That comparison trap, we've done entire episodes around that, but that comparison trap honestly just sets you up even worse for failure because you look at someone else, they hit their goals, their business grew consistently, they stayed focused, and then you look at yours and it's messy. But you didn't see their pivots. You didn't see their failures, their boring consistency that they don't put on their Instagram stories. You saw their highlight reel. Your year is a documentary. I want you to think about writing down 3 things, okay, that you achieved this year that surprised you. The ones that weren't planned. Okay, let's take a quick pause because I need to tell you about something before it's too late. Today is the last day to get my ADHD Creator Command Center at Black Friday pricing. Yes, it ends at midnight tonight. And here's the thing. If you're an ADHD creator or entrepreneur, you already know the content part isn't the hardest part. It's honestly everything else. It might feel like it's the content part, but that's because you can't be creative the way you want to be because of all the task and the chaos. Remembering what you posted, where, tracking if you're actually making money, managing clients without dropping the ball. The Creator Command Center I built is because I am tired of watching brilliant ADHD creators burn out from the business side of things. It's got your content planning, your revenue tracking, your client management, your social media analytics all in one place and is designed specifically for how ADHD brains actually work, not adapted. But it's built from scratch by me for you. And after tonight, it goes back to full price. And I honestly don't know if and when I'll discount it again. If you've been struggling to keep it all together, this is your sign. I'm going to have the link in the show notes for you. Midnight tonight. That's it. Back to the show. 3 things. Okay. This is so important because you have to be able to track your wins. You have to be able to build that momentum. The third thing that I see a lot is this idea of next year has to be different. And if you want different, 1000% go for it. Like, let's get together. Let's make a plan for how this can be different for you. But you're still going to have the same brain, the same strengths, the same challenges, the same hyper focus patterns. The question isn't whether next year will be different. It's whether you're going to plan for how your brain actually works instead of fighting it. Are you going to set something up different? Because if you don't make changes now, it's not going to happen next year. And that's why we have the Focus and Free membership. It's built around this, working with your brain, daily accountability, daily action. But that's what makes next year so much different for you. Instead of saying next year I'll be more disciplined, next year I'll work with my hyper focus instead of fighting it. And so your year is only valuable to you if it matches your plan. And you've got to get rid of that mindset. That is that productivity culture bullshit. Your value isn't measured by your goal completion rate, okay? It's measured by impact. I love marking things off my to-do list just as much as the next person. But you've got to track your growth and what you learn. And sometimes the most valuable year is the one where nothing went according to plan, but you adapted brilliantly. And you thinking that you should always be scaling and growing is also a downside. So, not every year in entrepreneurship is typically some crazy growth. It's just not. Can it be? Yes. But with that comes more responsibility, usually more cost, more expenses. So if you want to grow every year, absolutely you can. But I would make sure your business is set up sustainably before you try to go get crazy because all of those things are valid. Sometimes a year of stabilization is just what you need to get things set up for growth. Sometimes it can be and it will be just a we're surviving year. Okay. And that's part of the reason I created the unmasked community so that we can talk openly about this because you don't have to perform endless growth. You don't have to constantly have month over month be higher and higher. And this last one too, okay? And I see this so often, especially with so much social media, right? We all use social media for our business, so it's just how we think. But we often are looking at is revenue up, audience up, reach up, impact up. And those metrics matter, but they're not the only metrics. Sustainability matters. Fulfillment matters. Alignment with your values matter. And sometimes a year where you made the same revenue, but you worked 20 hours less, that is what people want. That might be what you want. That's a massive win. I remember my first year in business, I set goals. I set a lot of them. And by June, I completely abandoned half of them. And I felt like a failure. But then I looked at the actual impact. My community was thriving. My new customer segment was generating 40% up on revenue. My failure to hit the goals was actually my best year. And it really just came down to me using my ADHD intuition on when to pivot and when not to. And sometimes I pivoted too quickly. Sometimes I burnt things down just because I was bored. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. But I want to give you 5 quick steps to do your year-end review. Okay. Because next week we're going to talk about on the podcast planning for 2026. So, first, I want you to celebrate what you actually did, not what you didn't do. Okay. Before you look at your goals for next year, before you measure against your plan, write down everything you accomplished this year: launches, pivots, relationships, community you built, problems you solved, everything. Okay. Then I want you to categorize your wins into planned and unplanned. I know this sounds crazy. Do it. Do it. Plan, those are the things you said you were going to do and you finish them. Celebrate them. Unplanned, these are things that emerged from pivots, discoveries, accidents. Celebrate those even more. They are your brain working perfectly. Then I want you to kind of identify your hyperfocus pattern. And like I said, we're going to dive into this a lot more next week, but this is what you were obsessed with. Not what you should have been obsessed with, what you were actually obsessed with. If it was learning a new skill, if it was learning AI, if it was, really getting good at closing in your DMs, whatever that is, a market opportunity, a direction your business went. Next year, we're going to look at that and how can we work that into your strategy? Okay. Then I want you to assess what didn't happen and be really honest with why. Look at your goals, the ones that you didn't hit. Be honest. Did you not hit them because you were incapable or because they weren't right priority? Because they weren't connected to your dopamine, because they were boring, was some kind of external circumstance changing? If it's not capability, it's alignment. And last but not least, I want you to plan next year based on how your brain actually works. So again, we're going to talk about this more on next week's podcast episode, but the key here is don't plan next year based on how you wish it goes. Plan on how you know it can go based on what worked this year and what changes you're going to make for next year. If you need external accountability, that's why programs exist, okay? Next year works when your plan matches your brain. So I recommend that you block 2 to 3 hours for your year-end review. I know that seems like a lot of time, but get you some markers, color code it, get you a new notebook, whatever it takes. If you haven't already checked out the Creator Command Center, I have goal setting all put into it. Your ADHD year doesn't look like anyone else's, and that's not a flaw. That is your superpower. You adapted, you pivoted, you discovered things that you didn't plan for. You hyperfixated on what mattered. You built community, you created impact. That's not chaos. That's how great businesses actually work. So stop measuring yourself against a plan that didn't account for your brain and measure yourself against your actual growth, your actual impact, your actual wins. And then build next year around what you learned and how your brain works best. So with that being said, make sure that you check the show notes today, okay, to get the link to the Unmasked community, to check out the ADHD Creator Command Center and all of our resources and programs that we have. The only way to make sure that 2026 is set up for success is to review 2025 and commit to the changes you're going to make for next year. So as always, take a screenshot of you listening to this, throw it in your stories, tag me at socially.awesome. I want to celebrate you. I want to support you. As always, if you got any value out of this episode, leave me a review, please. It's the best compliment you can give. Everything that I share on here is from learned experience. I know this because I am you. I am here to help you grow your business. 2026 can look a lot different. if you start planning for it now. So until next time, make it simple, make it social, and make it awesome.